Hi, and welcome to Advanced Legal Research. My name is David Holt. I'm the Research and Emerging Technologies Librarian here at the Heaphy Law Library. This screencast will cover research strategies and search query formation. Okay, let's start first with some common newbie mistakes that we commonly see among both law students and those new to legal practice. One of the first mistakes that we see are searching for fact patterns rather than legal concepts. Jumping in too quickly, starting with primary materials first when you have no plan or you're not familiar with the legal topic and area. Failing to update. Failing to update means failing to shepherdize or key cite your primary sources, both your cases and your statutes after your research process, and going off in the wrong direction because you didn't ask your client follow-up questions. Okay, in the beginning stages of your research process, you're typically going to be doing some brainstorming. You're going to be looking to see what's the issue that's at play here, which jurisdiction. Is this a mix of state and federal law, or is it exclusively state or federal? What sources are going to be relevant? What's your cause of action? Do you even have a cause of action? Frequently, you may be given a fact pattern from a potential client and there's simply no cause of action to provide relief. If there is a cause of action, is that cause of action based in statutes or is it a common law cause of action? Frequently, you're going to have to go back to your client to solicit further information. Who's involved in the issue that requires research? What are the parties' relationships to each other? What facts you already know and what are missing? And then next, defining your question. You should have an idea as to what your ultimate research product is going to be, what you hope to accomplish, what questions need to be answered, and if you need to, again, solicit additional information from your client. Okay, and ultimately, what is the output going to be for the problem? Is it going to be a verbal answer, a research memo that you're presenting back to your supervising attorney? Is it a client letter? Is it a short summary or exhaustive treatment? Is this simply a response to an email? And then finally, creating a research plan. When approaching a complex legal research problem, it's a good idea to write down a research plan to determine how much time you're going to be spending on the project. And the reason why is because you'll always need to do a cost versus benefit analysis when embarking upon a research project. Legal research typically has a cost associated with it in addition to your time. Print resources, however, can be used repeatedly without additional cost. We've already gone over that a little bit. You may need to look at the plan that your firm has with Westlaw, Lexis, or Bloomberg to determine what the research project is actually going to cost. You may have practice materials that have a much higher cost than primary materials, and those are all going to be in the contract that you've negotiated with the vendor. As you select resources, it's always advisable to begin with secondary materials. This is particularly true if you're unfamiliar with the subject area. And there's a wide variety of secondary sources that have different reading levels. If you are completely unfamiliar with a legal topic, you can start with an encyclopedia. Here in California, we have a state encyclopedia that's called CalJur, California Jurisprudence. A step up in terms of reading level from there would be Witkins. If you're more familiar with the area, however, you can jump into some more advanced materials. These may include some major treatises or practice materials. Again, if this is a nascent, novel, or emerging area of law, you may want to look to legal scholarship. Generally, legal scholarship is not going to be of much value to you in day-to-day practice, but again, if it is an area of law that is nascent and emerging, you can look to legal scholarship published in student-edited law reviews. Select the appropriate secondary source. Obviously, if this is a state law question, then you would select a state-specific resource such as CalJur, Witkins, Rutter, or CEB. If this is federal law, then select a federal law specific resource. If this is a mix, you may want to select a national source such as ALR, which will contain analysis, commentary, and annotations to both state and federal primary materials. Again, if you're unfamiliar, start with the most basic secondary source that's available. You may even start with Wikipedia. From there, go up to jury instructions. Again, jury instructions are very easy to read as they have been written to be read to jurors. Then materials that are written for law students, such as nutshells, law school outlines, and hornbooks. And then finally, treatises and monographs. And then the secondary source that's going to have the most advanced content are going to be your practice sets and loose leaf services. You'll always want to assess the currency and authoritativeness of secondary materials. Not all secondary sources are alike. Witkins and major treatises are far more respected than law review articles, for example. And you're going to have a wide variety of substantiveness among secondary sources. You may have a very brief entry in a state encyclopedia, for example, and then a very exhaustive treatment of the same topic in a major treatise. And look for bias. And I'm not talking here about ideological bias. I'm talking about bias in terms of citing sources to the same publisher. As we all know, legal publishing is almost mafia controlled, in that we have a few major players that dominate much of the market. And you'll frequently see that Westlaw secondary materials will cite to other Westlaw sources, and the same will be true for Lexis and Bloomberg. Okay, when developing a search query, you want to create a list of terms. Check for synonyms. There is a words and phrases table and legal dictionaries that may be helpful for you here, but keep in mind to not be too literal. Start broadly and then narrow down, and if your search query produces more than 50 results, you're probably doing it wrong. Up until now, you've probably engaged in what we call natural language searching when using Westlaw or Lexis. Natural language searching is great, but semantic searching has its limitations. An example here of a natural language search query, a covenant of habitability and convicted sex offender, would be an example of natural language searching compared with what we call semantic searching, which is worded in much the same way as you would address a question. So does having a convicted sex offender as a neighbor violate the covenant of habitability? Keep in mind, however, to always search for both legal concepts and fact patterns. This is the biggest problem that we see with students when they're using natural language searching, is that they are searching for fact patterns similar to their fact scenario rather than to the legal concepts which are applicable. Some of the search query tools that you will utilize when doing advanced searching, so neither semantic nor natural language searching, but actual advanced searching, will include your Boolean operators and or not, proximity connectors, and so /s would mean that the two terms on each side of the operator exist within one sentence of each other or within the same paragraph, which is what /p indicates, or / and then the number of words apart from each other. Phrase searching, and so to search for a phrase, you put it in quotation marks, and you can search for two phrases here within the same sentence. So domestic violence as a phrase within the same sentence of spousal support. Truncators and wildcards. Wildcards will fill in for any character but only one character, whereas truncators will be one or more characters. And so crim with an exclamation point at the end will catch crime, criminal, criminality, and so forth. And then facets and searching within results, which we're going to go over in just a second. So Boolean operators, you may have some familiarity with Boolean operators and or not, are used to combine or exclude keywords in a search and can result in more focused and productive results. It can save you time by eliminating irrelevant materials from your search query results. Proximity indicators, again, /s indicates that the terms are within the same sentence, /p within the same paragraph, and / up to 10 here would be the specified number of words apart from each other. Segment searching in Westlaw. You'll notice that every document in Westlaw and Lexis have segments that are assigned to each section. You can search within those segments using the segment searching feature in Westlaw or Lexis. The thing to remember about segment searching in Westlaw is that the segments are abbreviated with a 2-letter abbreviation. In Lexis, however, you have to spell out the segment. And so segment searching in Lexis, if you were to search for cases by party name, you would have to spell out the segment and then place the keywords within a parenthetical. Same would be true for a headline, judges, written by an attorney. If you were to locate cases that were authored by Posner and written by or argued by a particular attorney. And then facet searching you probably have already utilized even with your natural language search queries. Facet searching is using the facets that are on the left side of your Westlaw Next page that are also on the left side of Lexis Advanced, and they will restrict your search results by a particular content type, jurisdiction, date, and so on. There's also, in addition to facet searching within results. You can narrow your search query by adding an additional keyword to the query. This can particularly be helpful to help you avoid additional charges. Both Lexis and Westlaw, depending on the plan that your firm's negotiated with the vendor, may charge per search query, but they will not assess you an additional charge for a search within. Now you can always click on Advanced in Westlaw Next to show you the available search fields that are relevant for the database that you're searching within. It used to be that you have to preface your search query with ADV : in order for Westlaw Next to recognize that you're using the advanced search function. That's no longer true. However, Westlaw Next will recognize an advanced search query and will automatically preface that query with ADV. You'll notice this in just a second when we get into this. So here's an example of an advanced Westlaw Next query. Notice I'm prefacing my search query with ADV. The system will automatically enter this in for me if I fail to enter that in. And I'm doing a segment search within the headnotes for the phrase domestic violence, and also segment search date after 1990, Boolean operator and again, probation with a truncator at the end. So this will catch probations, probationary within the same sentence of either, notice the or Boolean operator, firearm with a truncator symbol, or weapon with a truncator. And so this will catch domestic violence as a phrase that exists within the headnote of any cases published after 1990 that also contain within the opinion the words probation, probationary within the same sentence of either firearms, or weapons with a truncator. And let's try this search query here in Westlaw Next. And so if we were to specify our jurisdiction here and restrict this to only California, I can do an advanced search within the headnote for domestic violence. And let's see the results that produces for us. We have 540 published cases in California that will have the phrase domestic violence within a headnote. We can restrict that to probation with the truncator at the end within the same sentence of either firearm, truncator, or weapon, truncator. and we get 18 published cases for this search query. And let's take a look at this case to see how that search query worked. And so if I advanced to my next search term here, you'll see that domestic violence does appear in the head note for this case, and that probation also exists within the same sentence as weapon within the opinion. After you've produced results to your search query, you'll then want to evaluate your search results. Question whether they're relevant. Are they too broad, too narrow? Are there obvious gaps? And obvious gaps may be indicative that the usage of a term may have changed. You may have a term that was used in the past that's now considered antiquated. If you see obvious gaps that don't seem quite correct, then that may be one explanation for that. Are there an ending point where you do not see any recent cases after a certain date? That may be something to question. Has there been a recent major change, recent statutory change? And then finally, make sure to update and Shepardize or Keysight, depending on your platform, your results. Finally, knowing when you're done. Do you have a list of the major cases for the topic? Have you looked at practice materials, all of your major treatises? Have you checked citators, current awareness tools, recent developments? If you're seeing the same list of primary materials in one secondary source after another, that's a pretty good indication that your research process may be mostly complete. Again, if you have any questions about the assignments for this week or questions about the course in general, feel free to post them in our discussions forum, and I will respond back as promptly as possible.